Go ahead. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay. Okay. All right, so I don't have the best behind the scenes picture for this setup. This is the best one I could find. So hopefully I can use this one to kind of explain what all is going on. So there's only constant lights. This is specifically up here. This is an Aputure 600. And then this is the other one. This is an Aputure 600. So both of these are constant lights. I'm specifically using like an area dome, or I used to call them China balls back in the day, but an area dome or area light on here. So it's basically throwing the light in all directions. And then I have this like really large light dome. Both of these are from Aputure on this light. I'm using this as my primary light, and then this is the secondary, or this as my key, one as my key and then two as my fill. It's probably better language so that we have like consistent communication throughout all of these different videos. So this overhead light up here is going to be my key. This over here is going to be my fill. And then I'm using this bounce board over here as some additional fill as well. But it's just kind of filling in some of the light that you'll see coming from this key light up here. So the key light is going to be spread in all different directions. It's going to hit this board and then it'll fill in from the opposite direction. So I'm gonna show you another image that I have that probably gives you a different angle of this. But essentially this is my lighting setup the entire time. Let me find another image that will give you a different angle of this same thing. All right, so this is another angle with that same thing going on. Now you can't see it, but there's still that area light that's all the way up here, right? All the way up here, right? And it's gonna shine that light over here, and that light that bounces off of this is going to illuminate some of the shadows over here. And then for this specific image, because it's a beauty image, there's another board that my homie's holding up from below that's filling in some of the shadows down here as well. And we'll see how all of this stuff plays out on the actual final images, but I just wanted to show you the lighting setup because I don't have a really clean shot of the overall lighting setup. So I wanted to make sure that I kind of did this in reverse. Normally I would want to dissect the picture and then figure out how the light played a part. But with this one, we're going to look at the light and then we'll see what the results are with the pictures. So that fill light that was behind or on the side, I got another image I want to show you for that one. Hold on. All right, so with this picture, I know it seems strange, you can't see very much, but for perspective, there's that area light that's all the way up here in this corner, right? This is the octabox or the light dome that I said was really big. And I specifically am picking this picture up just to show you something very simple, which is this. This is my hand, all right? And the reason why that matters is because I wanted to give you an idea of the proximity of that light to where I was as I was taking the pictures. It's kind of like on my right shoulder, right over my right shoulder, close enough for me to be able to grab it and move it around if I needed to. And that's essentially why I had it there as a fill, but I wanted it to be so close to me that it was on the same axis as the lens, as close as it could be. And all I wanted to do is have it at a really low power just to add a little bit of fill to make sure that that area light that was coming from overhead, the key light, wasn't making too many shadows, trying to cut through the flowers that the model's wearing and then illuminate on her face. So oddly enough, I just wanted to show this image as well. This is actually kind of where we started at. What we did was, if you saw at the beginning of the video, we had a smoke machine. We got a little bit of atmosphere because we were in this studio. The space was big enough, or the area was big enough for that smoke or that fog to clear out and kind of leave us with a little bit of atmosphere that we got to lean into so that everything didn't feel so sterile. So you'll see some of that fog and smoke kind of come in. And you also see kind of where we started at with the lighting. So when we just started with the area light just kind of shining in general. And then once I saw how that light fell, I was able to make some tweaks with it to make sure it was far enough in front of my subject while at the same time still keeping that overhead vibe. But then I wanted to make some additional adjustments by adding in like a foam core over here that we saw, and then a whole nother fill light over here that basically kind of helped illuminate from that area. I'm not going to overdo this explanation because I think it's pretty straightforward, but those are the 2 lights and then that foam core to help fill in. And then when we did beauty shots, we actually brought in another board that helped fill in some of the shadows from below. Here's a bit of a wider shot, so I took a slightly different angle and you can still see the 2 lights kind of playing a part, but this time I was trying to shoot further into the corner of this wall. So that's where, that's why it looks like that octobox is a little bit farther away from me than it initially was. All right, so this is one of my favorite images from the session. So I'll point out some of the things that stick out to me, and then we'll try to make the connection between the lighting setup and then the results that we're seeing. So right off the bat, I'm looking at these hot spots, like these dappled lighting hot spots that we're seeing. All right, so we got something on the arm. You can even see the hot spots that are showing up on the clothing, right? If you look close enough, you'll start to see some of the hot spots on the flower, right? Even on the opposite side. There's some highlights in here as well. Shouldn't call them hot spots, but highlights and hot spots in here. All right. And then on the reverse, if I were to change my color to red, I'll go in and you'll see some of the shadows that start to show up in here as well. Even a shadow under the chin, shadow from the fingers and that collarbone, we got a bit of a shadow. There's that dappling of light, but then there's a bit of a shadow here for where that light doesn't hit. And then the same thing where we see highlights on the garment, we also see some small areas where the shadows show up. And one thing that we got more down here that we can kind of point out, and there's some highlights and shadows in there, but just primarily just pointing out the shadows. Now, what we do remember about the lighting is that there's a light that's up here out of the camera. So obviously it's going to be a little bit higher than you can see in this frame, right? We know that right outside of the frame over here, there's a bounce board. All right. That's going to have some of the light that is emitting from this direction, hitting that bounce board, and then very softly returning some of that light onto that shadow side. Then we also know back this way, or from the camera's perspective where I'm standing at, there's a large light source that is essentially like, this is gonna look stupid, but just for the sake of trying to show what it's illuminating, it's gonna illuminate this, right? Because the light is essentially pointing at her from the same angle as the camera. So while that may not look great for the illustration, it kind of reflects the fact that there's a light that is straight in front of her that also can be seen all the way in her eye. So let's make this a little bit smaller. Right, so I see that big octobox, and then I see that foam core making that line, right? So there's that foam core there, that's the other foam core from below, and then there's that hot spot that's coming from the octobox. So those are the lights that we're seeing show up in her eye line, right? And then we also know where those lights came from. So we have our key light that we referenced up here. We have our key light. I'm label that as the number 1. We have our fill light down here. That's our 2. We have a fill light here. And then right here, outside of the frame, there's another foam core that we know is also bouncing some of that light back up and returning it into her face as well. So we have that 1 light, we have the 2 lights, we have a wall being made here, and then we have that wall, or excuse me, that bounce board that's coming from like a tabletop of sorts from the foam core below. All right, let's see if we can see all of this in another image. All right, so here's the next image. This next image has a similar scenario, right? So I'm gonna look for the highlight in the hair. Actually, that pen is a little smaller than I'd like. So we're looking for that highlight in the hair. We got another highlight up here, basically a bunch of highlights up here. All right, where else? I see a really strong highlight on the collar. There's one peeking through here, even in there. On the top of the actual ladder, there's a hot spot. There's a hot spot over here on the flower. right? And then we flip that around and then we look for the shadows. So there's some darker areas, obviously under the ladder. Those are the darkest areas, right? On the arm, under the arrow, under the ladder. But on her shadow side, so on this side, on this side in particular, right? That light is bouncing back or returning that light to her so that we're not getting a dark shadow on this side of her face. You can even see her shoulder and her arm aren't getting a very dark feeling either, primarily because of that light source up here being so bright that its closest location is the hair, which explains why the hair has that hot spot on the top. But then it also references the fact that the light is basically pushing from that key, sending it to the foam core, and then the foam core is getting illuminated and then returning that light onto her shadow side. I'll explain what this kind of blurry area is. It may look like it's something I did in Photoshop, but no, I just put a flower in front of the lens. I'll show you that in a second.
What about, oh, that could be nice. Just at the flower? No, on the flower. You see what I'm saying? The flower white. But it's showing up beautifully. I'm not mad at that. I feel like we got this, yes? We can move.
So basically the same thing that we saw in the other image. We see that hot spot coming from overhead, and then we see the return coming from the foam core, and then a little bit of fill again from the octabox that's beside me on set. And then we look in her eye, and in her eye we see those same things kind of at play again. We have that board, right? And then that hot spot is a light. We have that board, and then that hot spot is a light. Good. But that's it. I hope that was helpful to you. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and I can delve deeper into any specific area of this production. Peace.